with Roscoeas, because they're so slow, need to get put through tissue culture to build up the sufficient numbers. One company said it will cost us £1,000 per plant to put it through tissue culture. Can we have 10? Can you send us your best 10? And we'll put them all through tissue culture. So we're like, wow, this is incredible. This is really, really brilliant. Sent them the plants. They all got shipped over to Holland in the box. They moved offices, left them all in the boxes, and the whole lot died. So that put me back about 3 years. So we had to wait, and then we bulked them up again. They've gone out again. They've gone to other producers.
What I find amazing about this podcast is we've traipsed our way through a whole variety of different plants, Adichiums and Abutilons, and everything else in between. You came on to talk primarily about Eucomis, and I don't even know how long.
No, we've completely not touched that at all yet.
So, National Collection holder of Eucomis, Richard Clark of Panache Plants. How did you come to be the National Collection holder? It's no mean feat, as we all know.
Well, now what happened was I was doing displays at the San Flower Show, and I was always trying to do sort of exotic displays. So we had cannas and bananas and aeoniums and all sorts of things in there. Never did very well with these displays, but we started to put some Eucomis in, and the Eucomis were flowering perfectly for Sandringham. And then people were starting to get interested in them. People were sort of asking about the Eucomis, and I do remember going on the radio one Sandringham. A certain Mr. Gray came up to me, and he came up to Emma, my other half, and said, "Would you like to go on the radio to talk about the Eucomis?" And Emma said, "Yeah, of course, Richard would love to," and shoved me on. So we got on to do that. So this is all Alan's fault, really. That it all started. I sort of thought, well, people are interested. They display beautifully, so I'll start collecting them. And we started to put the display together. The wonderful thing about Eucomis is they don't wilt like other plants. So in a hot, dusty marquee, they perform really, really beautifully. I'm amazed nobody else does displays of Eucomis. I think it's probably quite a unique thing to do. Just displaying Eucomis on their own.
It wasn't until you said that.
Well, yeah, they got to jump on and do this one. They're really, really easy. The vase life of the Eucomis is phenomenal. I mean, they will last for months in a vase. In fact, they'll start sprouting at the top. They'll start growing again. The flower heads, they will last that long. You will get sick of them and chuck them away. Lots of them are grown for the cut flower market now. So they're good plants. I mean, they're good for displays and equally good out in the garden as well.
It's funny that, isn't it? Because actually, when things are really good, they normally get ruined. Chrysanthemums, I think they're self-sabotaged by being too good, and then they become the garage forecourt flower. It's wonderful, actually, that you have something like Eucomis, probably because it's maybe a bit harder to grow or something. I don't know, but it's not. No. Well,
No,
isn't it wonderful
I wouldn't have
that
a national
hasn't
collection
happened?
if it wasn't easy.
Let's hope no one cottons on and Eucomis become as ubiquitous, and then they might lose some of their magic, because at the moment they do have such an extraordinary kind of...
Well, that's it. I mean, when I sort of first started, I started with Eucomis bicolor, and you buy some bulbs and they're quite cheap, and it's this sort of gnarly looking root structure, and you plant it and you think, wow, you get so much out of this. You get this wonderful, architectural plant, and it's interesting. It's got this big foliage, it's tropical, it's lush, but it's also got a beauty, and it's pretty as well as architectural. They're excellent plants. So I started to, my display gradually got more and more Eucomis in it, because it was a nice, simple thing to do. And we started to collect and had a number of them. So we thought, well, let's get one of these collections registered. Let's get recognition for one of the collections that we've got, and that's what we did. And that's how the sort of national collection came along. I spoke to somebody else who has also got a national collection, but a much smaller one, and his advice was, choose something where there's not too many of them, because it'd be a lot easier to deal with. And I was like, Eucomis, there can't be that many. I've now got 200 different accessions within the collection. And we're finding more all the time. It's big, but they're good. wonderful things. They drive me absolutely mad. As a warning for national collections, it's always best to, if you're going to choose a plant, choose one that has actually got a key to the species, because this is the big flaw with Eucomis, is there's no real key to the species, and most things are wrong. It is massively misidentified. So lots and lots of them are, there's so many errors in this. It's phenomenal. It drives me mad.
So how do you dig down into that to figure out the errors to get to the bottom of what's
wrong?
Well,
that's kind of what the point of the collection is. So the reason that I've got, I've amassed so many of them is to try and find out what is right and what is wrong. The hybrids that have been created in horticulture, in the main, they're right. There's very few mistakes within those, but the species is absolutely riddled with errors. If you were to go back to, South Africa, where they come from, it would be completely different. I'm sure that most of the material that is in horticulture is not what it purports to be, certainly on the species front. So it drives you absolutely mad. And also, I think some things were limited selection, limited collections. So things like Eucomis schijffii, you only see, they all look very, very similar. All the material that I've, got from, that's in cultivation looks very, very similar. But if you look at pictures of it in the wild, it's far more variable. There's loads and loads of different ones. It's probably because it was only ever collected once, or that one bit of material, that's the bit that was distributed around. It's a very skewed view that you have in horticulture compared to what is actually going on in the wild. So yeah, it's a head scratcher, that's for sure. But I mean, hopefully if we get as much material as possible together, and then it will start to provide some answers to what is actually what.
Which one is the biggest one? Is it pallidiflora?
I knew you were going to go for that. The biggest headache or the biggest plant? At the moment, it's probably both. And yeah, pallidiflora is the biggest. Certainly, is the absolute giant. I must say, things like vandermerwei and the small ones, I think are absolutely exquisite. I like the really little ones, but
yeah,
pallidiflora is the one that everyone's going to go for because it's a monster.
It is a monster. Is it synonym of sort of pole-evansii?
Right, here we go.
Okay. Here we go.
This is at this point in time, my answer, which may change. The caveat with all of this is, it could be completely wrong and it could change, because periodically I go through, I think I've got everything cracked, and then a botanist or a taxonomist will email me and say, no, I'm sorry, but that's all wrong. It's completely wrong. And here we go, back to square one.
But is this because botanists then sort of say it's not that, because genetically I can see that it's slightly different from pallidiflora?
I think it's just, if you look at the wild stocks, I think they are just completely wrong.
Yeah.
With the wild stocks, the ones in cultivation are completely wrong. So the pallidiflora story, a few years ago, I would have said species pallidiflora is a rarity in horticulture, because species pallidiflora should be a very small version of a pole-evansii. Okay. But more recently, I would say that the bulk of material in horticulture is actually pallidiflora pole-evansii. Sorry, pallidiflora var pallidiflora. Pole-evansii is a rarity. If you look at stocks in the wild, it's quite different. It seems to have much shorter flower stems, so you get a much tighter head on it.
But there was a period, probably 10 years ago now, maybe slightly more, when pole-evansii was marketed.
Yes.
As a separate. I mean, my little story about pole-evansii is I went to this lady's garden who was a compulsive collector of plants, and she said to me, "Look at this. I bet you haven't got this, have you?" I said, "What is it?" She said, "It's a Eucomis. It comes from South Africa. It's Paul Evans too."
Yeah, but do you think it was pole-evansii?
I have no idea, Richard. My memory doesn't go back that far.
because I would say it's probably pallidiflora, a robust form of pallidiflora, subspecies pallidiflora.
Yeah.
But the strange thing with this is, right, you can get completely bogged down in the taxonomy of this, but what were formerly pole-evansii, but are now pallidiflora, subspecies pallidiflora, they're probably bigger than pole-evansii. We've selected out some absolute whoppers. I've got one in my collection that is particularly big and particularly vigorous plant. It's probably bigger than a pole-evansii, and that is a pallidiflora. And you just think, wow, that's brilliant. So who cares what it's called?
I'm just wanting to say that. I am just wanting to say that. Who cares what it's called? Let's just have it. Give it a name. All right, call it Arthur. I don't care.
That's it. Well, that would be better, really, wouldn't it? If we just gave everything just cultivar names.
Yes.
Let's not worry about the species.
Yes.
These are brilliant plants. I'm not going to go, oh, it's not pole-evansii, so we'll just dump that.
No.
It's a magnificent plant. It's phenomenal. So, it's definitely got a place in my collection, whatever it's called.
How do you propagate to increase your stock?
Right.
Without giving your secrets away, but I mean.
Oh, no. Well, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Sharing, isn't it?
Yeah.
In horticulture, there are so many brilliant ways of propagating plants, and nobody ever tells you. They never write it in books. They never tell you, and you sort of stumble across it. It should be shared, and I mean that's part of the collection. Is I would like Eucomis to be more widely grown.
Yeah.
So no, I've got no secrets on this one at all. If you can't propagate Eucomis, just give up gardening, really, because if you can't do Eucomis, then you've got no hope at all. Eucomis is one of these bizarre plants that will grow from a bulb. And offset, and you can take those offsets and propagate from those. It will also produce loads and loads and loads of seed, phenomenal quantities of seed. I mean, it's quite weedy, really, and it's the amount of seed that it will produce. But you can also produce it from leaf cuttings. So you can take a leaf and you can chop it up in a similar way that you do things like streptocarpus and St. Paulas, and you can propagate from the leaves. You just arrange them in sort of late summer. You chop a leaf up and you pop it into trays of compost, keep it quite humid, and then even that section of leaf will root and then produce little bulblets. And from one leaf, you could cut that into 10 sections, and each one of those can produce you 10 little bulblets. So you can produce loads off that. You can propagate off of the flower heads, because the oddity of Eucomis and why Eucomis is because it has the coma at the top of the flower. What makes it look like a pineapple is it's got these lovely bracts of leaves at the top. And as I said earlier on, if you cut them as flowers, even those bracts at the top, they will start to produce bulbs after a couple of months and start reproducing. So that there's plenty of ways there to do it. More recently, in my little experiments, I bought some bulbs from one of the big bulb growers, and when they showed up, they were absolutely horrible, these bulbs. Now, I'm not a perfectionist or anything, but I like my bulbs to look nice. When I receive them, I want them to look nice bulbs. I'm going to bury them in my garden and never see them again, but I really want them to look nice. These ones look like they'd been mangled through the workings of a tractor. They were absolutely butchered, but they were sprouting. So I thought, well, this is quite an interesting thing that the power they have to regenerate. So I thought, well, I wonder if I can chop some bulbs up and see what they do. And I was interested in snowdrops as well. And with snowdrops, you do the wonderful art of twin scaling, which is very, very complicated. And you probably know more than me, Alan, because you have got a snowdrop named after you, haven't you? I mean, this is...
Yes, I have. I'd forgotten that. I really had forgotten that until somebody mentioned it the other day to me, that because we've got awesome snowdrops in the garden and they're flowering, and this woman walked past me and she said, snowdrops in October. Oh! Yeah, I have got a snowdrop named after me. I'm very lucky, actually. Joe Sharman named one after me, which was very kind of him. But yeah. I mean, snowdrops are a thing unto themselves, but mean, scrupulously clean is what you have to be when you're twin scaling, but you have to leave, I think, a piece of the base plate of the bulb, that flat bit, like the flat ring on the bottom of the bulb where the leaves, the roots come out from around the edge. You have to leave a part of that with the bulb segments to actually get them to multiply.
Absolutely. And then they're all put into different conditions, aren't they? They're all stored in vermiculite in bags, and then they have to put them into certain temperatures, and then they can take them out. And it's this great long process of doing it.
Most people use the airing cupboard, Richard.
Yeah. So I thought, well, I could probably do that. No problem at all. So I got my dirty old kitchen knife, chopped them up into 4 bits, stuffed them back in the pot there. No problem at all. And they sprouted quite happily, a lot easier than snowdrops. And they start to regenerate. I mean, it's obviously stimulating them to offset bulbs. I think if you're doing twin scaling, you'll start to get lots of little bulblets produced around the base. With this one, you tend to just get it will stimulate the growth of one shoot.
It's more like, I suppose, dividing a dahlia tuber, and you're looking for something that's sprouting and
an eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, but with this one, you've just got the centre of the bulb, and I'm pretty sure whatever you cut it into, that section will sprout. And this is a brilliant way of replicating them.
Yeah.
So you'll get an ugly bulb at the end, but it will increase your stocks.
While we're talking about the idea of sharing propagation methods, I should mention that we had a brilliant message come through on our Get Gardening Instagram, which is not as active as it could be, but we do check it. Same has got to be said for the wonderful comments you leave us on YouTube. It is often quite hard to reply to some of them, but we read and love every single one. So thank you for all of your wonderful praise, questions, comments, stories, anecdotes. We love all of it. And this one came in from Plantsman Phil on Instagram, because Alan had mentioned taking Eucomis cuttings of the leaves, and this guy was doing cuttings of Eucomis dark star, and he found that all parts of the leaf will root, but the section of leaf containing the leaf tip rooted the quickest. And he also found that if you do, as Alan had mentioned, and cut a V shape in the bottom, it increased the amount of bulblets that you got for each leaf cutting, but it also reduced the initial survival rate a bit. So he tends to use straight cuts so that he gets a greater survival rate. And that's exactly what you're talking about, Richard, that idea of people experimenting and sharing what worked for them so that you've got as much information at your disposal when you're working out what to try yourself.
Absolutely. But I think the other little interesting thing when you do it is when you're doing a leaf cutting, this is vegetative propagation, and you're expecting all those plants to be clones of the parent plant. But the strange thing with Eucomis is you'll get different plants coming up from the same leaf cutting. You will get different colours coming up for some odd reason, whether it is the complexity of the leaves, because you've got lots of different markings and spots and stripes and variegation and things within the leaves. Whether that causes it, but they're not uniform.
Wow.
As you would hope, which is a little oddity of Eucomis. I wonder if anyone else has noticed that.
Fascinating. Before we depart from Eucomis, as National Collection holder, what are the ones that you would say people should be growing in their gardens, apart from all of them, obviously? What are your top picks?
I would say the aloha series are brilliant. So there's aloha lily Leia, which is a beautiful pink, quite dwarf. I would think it is a autumnalis or zambesiaca vandermerwei cross. It's got really good garden performance. You get lots and lots of offsets on the bulb, so you get lots and lots of flowers, and it's just really pretty. That's probably the best bit of breeding in Eucomis for a while. Pink gin is worth it for the name alone, and that is an absolutely lovely sort of comosa type with a lovely pink. Dark star, as you said earlier on, that's fantastic for the foliage. Really good. Pallidifloras, whatever they are well worth growing in the garden, definitely on those. What else we got? Lotte is another comosa, which is beautiful because it's got the centres of the flowers a deeper purple with a paler leaf. Everyone's a winner, really. I think.
I'll tell you what I did. I also think about Eucomis is the fact that lots of the smaller ones make superb plants for containers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, they have a whole long season of interest. I mean, lots of the tiny ones that you can get them ones with no plain green foliage, but you can get speckled foliage. Don't ask me the names, please, Richard, because I can't remember.
Well, but it's probably what is spelt vandermerwei, but I suspect it's probably pronounced more vandermerwei.
Yeah.
So I would go on the sort of fun of vandermerwei.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's a very, very common name in South Africa, but I think we're all pronouncing it wrong. But hey ho.
But bulb manufacturers will say, bulb producers, sellers, merchants will say vandermerwei, and then they would say a name like speckled octopus or something.
Yeah, that's
just
it.
To give it a name that ordinary people can understand.
Absolutely. Well, some of these names are so absolutely horrible to say. I mean, there's Eucomis. I would say it's schijffii because it's named after Van der Schijf, but that has got J's in all sorts of letters. I mean, it's anybody asks for it, it sounds like they've been drinking very heavily the night before when they try to pronounce it. But it's certainly not spelt schijffii, but I suspect that's probably the pronunciation on it. But there we go. It's a lot easier if they've got simple names.
As I discovered from calling my child a name with a J in it, people don't know what to do with J's. So Fiola, almost everybody who sees it calls him Fajola, which brings us endless mirth.
Well, my daughter is Freya, and because Emma is Swedish, so she's my little Viking girl, and we thought, no, shall we do Freya with a J? And they're like, no, because everybody will spell it wrong, won't they? She'll go through her whole life having her name spelled wrong. It's bad enough being Clark without an E. So, let alone that.
My family have a branch of Clarks. They came from Yorkshire, and they're all without an E.
Oh, there you go. Perhaps we're related.
Who knew?
Oh, wouldn't that be good? I love that. Long lost nephew 5 times removed or something.
So I thought this was Talking Dirty, not This Is Your Life.
Now we've covered Eucomis. The other thing people might know you for, if they've encountered you doing talks in the local area, is Carnivorous Plants. I think you love, alongside everything else we've talked about, love a dabble in a carnivorous plant.
Yeah, well, I've been collecting carnivorous plants since I was about 14. There are better collections of carnivorous plants in the world, I do accept, but no, Sarracenias, American pitcher plants, the whole plant will die down over the winter because these are very hardy plants, and they need a winter dormancy. So the whole thing dies down over the winter, and in the spring you'll get the flowers first before the pitchers appear, so that the pollinators don't get eaten by the plant. So it's quite a good sort of system for that one. But the flowers are lovely. You've got this upturned sort of umbrella-like structure, and then 5 petals that hang down. They're absolutely stunning. If we do the early shows and we take them just in flower without the pictures, people think they're orchids, or they think they're something quite exotic and wonderful, and they are wonderful. But yeah, they're worth it for that alone. You can make hybrids. Sarracenias are wonderful from a breeding point of view because all the species will cross together, and all of the hybrids are fertile. So you can cross everything with everything forever. And you can just make your own vegetable gargoyles, to your heart's content. And you can sort of select for the pictures, but you can also select for the flowers. So you start to get different colours coming out of the flowers, and you can just go on and on forever with them. So yeah, they're quite lovely.
What kind of conditions do they like? I mean, I'm thinking stagnant water.
Well, yeah, they need to be in rainwater. Because obviously the trouble, our water is just too limey for those. So we have them all just in rainwater. I just have a polytunnel, and we just flood the base of it with rainwater. So they're permanently saturated, because they're bog plants. So you'll find them on the coast of America, right the way from the Florida Panhandle up to Canada. So you get all the wonderful swamps like the Okefenokee swamp and places like that. So yeah, they just keep them permanently waterlogged. You don't have to feed them.
I love that name, Okefenokee swamp.
Oh, it's on my bucket list of places I need to go.
Yeah.
I want to go to the Chihuahuan Desert.
Yeah.
And I want to go to the Okefenokee. Yeah. And the Okefenokee Swamp, just because it's got a wonderful name. So I don't know. Should you select holiday destinations purely on the name? I don't know. It just sounds wonderful.
But yeah, apart from needing constant saturation, anything else that people need to know if they want to grow them?
Leave them alone, really. They're fine. If they never caught a fly, they still photosynthesize, they still survive. They're easy plants to grow. I bought my first one when I was 14, and I have still got it. So they are incredibly long-lived plants.
I mean, obviously, it's only been about 10 years, but
absolutely, yeah, that's it. 10 years? I'm only 19. I don't know.
But yeah, more people probably should grow them now. I've just looked at the time and realised that the baby's going to come back from his walk anytime now and probably demand some milk. So
that's your lot.
All right.
So I'll tell you what, before we move on to Flomo, shall we give just a little snippet of time to salvias?
Oh, right, yes, salvias. Yeah, highly, highly addictive. Salvias are such a brilliant plant because they are so easy to flower. They flower for such a long period. You've got such a range of colours, the flowering with them. And they don't like too much water, which is great because I hate watering. I spend a lot of my life is devoted to watering. So anything that's not going to suffer too much from not, getting watered all the time is a brilliant thing. Again, these are well worth collecting seed off of. If you want to do some of the sort of Mexican types, it's quite difficult to hand pollinate them, and the pollination is probably moths. It's probably hummingbird hawk moths, which we're lucky we have a population of them. They seem to be doing all the work. If you collect the seed and grow them out, everyone is a winner. They are all absolutely lovely. They're absolutely beautiful. We think we've got a few really good ones at the minute, so we're sort of working with those. But yeah, they're lovely. But salvias are highly, highly addictive. I think we did about 300 from seed, and 298 of them are lovely. They're beautiful. There's 2 in there that I think are particularly good. But the rest of them, they're lovely. They're all. I've not seen one that I don't like. So yeah, I couldn't possibly choose on the salvia front. They're all brilliant.
Right, I've heard the garden gate go. We probably should move on to Flomo before a screaming child enters the house. Flomo, that fear of missing out you get about a flower or a plant of any variety. Something we haven't mentioned at all, but which I saw on the Panache Plants Instagram a while back was a Lychnis. I love any kind of orangey, reddy kind of plant, and it was a Lychnis arkwrightii called Vesuvius, orangey scarlet flowers, which I thought would look rather nice in my front garden. So I thought maybe I'll add that to my Flomo list. And Abutilon as well, because we obviously talked about your love of Abutilons and crossing them. One called Leila Jackson, kind of peachy yellow, deep red throat to the flower. I thought that was really rather
really floriferous. Really
good.
Yeah, it is a good one. I like that very, very much.
What's its hardiness, that one?
Well, I think it's quite tough. I think it's quite good. I mean, all of ours have just overwintered. We overwinter them in a walled garden, so it is quite a nice climate. But they've all been quite happy in there. So I mean, it's not the coldest place in the world, that's for sure. And it's nice and bright and sunny, but they seem quite happy in there. So,
well, maybe I'll give it a try. I did lose Kentish Bell last year, which was really sad because it was rather nice and wonderfully floriferous. I mean, obviously one of the most famous of all Abutilons, really. So hardy and such a good doer, and that was always great on my back fence, and it's no more. So maybe I do need another Abutilon in my life. Richard, where are you at with your Flomo? We know you love to always move on to the next thing. So what is the next thing in Panache Plants world?
What are my current obsessions at the minute? Tyrella or Tiarellas, which are like little heuchera.
Oh yes,
relatives, but really pretty foam flowers. Really pretty spring flowering plants. Yeah, I've got a bit of a thing for those at the moment. And then what else is going on? I don't know, really. Anything that's going, really. I'm glad that the Hediciums are proving popular. So yeah, any Hediciums that are going is always a good thing.
He's going to be taking a stroll along that trial border at East Ruston, I can tell.
Yeah,
come and have a look, because I mean it's nice. I think it's lovely that, in actual fact, I mean the RHS are doing this with us, and they're doing it with a garden in Scotland and Wisley. So you'll get, the different situations provide different conditions. So I mean it should be quite a broad spectrum, shall we say?
Yeah.
Nice to see how they do. I mean, I hope you will come and have a look.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing, because I always want to go up and see the Wisley trials.
Yes.
But we just never get round to it.
Well, the trouble is, Richard, is that London is in the way, because you've got to go almost down to London and turn right, and you think you're nearly there, but you're not.
Yeah, well, no, I think you're right there. I think London is in the way of a lot of good nurseries. Perhaps we could move it or something.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Yeah. The only downside of Norfolk.
Let's keep it
that
way, Thordis.
I think I'd go for Tetrapanaxes as well on my Flomo. So some of the cultivars, Mei Feng is one I'm after at the minute. So yeah,
I've just got Sue Shan.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm definitely going to come and see you then, Alan.
Well, it's only a cutting, but
oh right.
I just have to say, if going on to my Flomo, if I may, is Ficus Jolly Tiger. It's a fig, and it has very, very variegated yellow leaves, slashed with big patches of yellow. I only know 2 people that have got it at the moment. One is Wisley, and the other is Philip Oosterbrink. And Philip came to the garden the other day, and he very kindly bought me a box of plants, for which, Richard, if you see this podcast, thank you so much. I was thrilled. And it was from this box of plants that I got Tetrapanax Sue Shan.
Cool.
Which is a lovely, lovely plant. I'm so pleased to have it.
But you're still waiting on your Ficus Jolly Tiger then?
I am, yes. I mean, one of these days, somebody will take enough cuttings, and it probably cost me an arm and a leg. But I have been saving. So if anybody out there is listening, need to get in touch. That's what Richard was saying about Eucomis. There's a plant that I've been growing in the garden for years, which we used to grow as a pot plant from my childhood anyway, and it's called Tolmia.
Yes.
Second name. It's got kind of picorellidite type leaves, and it's known as the pickerback plant because it sends out little plants on very thin runners, if you like, and in the garden most of them die. But if you pick the right time, and I did, I was going past and I just saw all these, and I thought, oh, you're going to get mangled in the next few weeks. So I picked a handful off, put them into a cell tray, put them on a warm bench. Everyone is rooted. So that's a piece of thrill for me. It's not exactly a Flomo, but it's just to raise awareness of the fact that this Tolmia is a garden-worthy plant.
It's a Flomo for everyone else.
Yeah. Well, if you'd like one, you've both got one. So
there's a nice golden version as well. I can't think what the color. Yeah, this is very pretty.
Ah, have you got it?
Yeah, I'll swap it for a Tetrapanax.
Right. You might have a bit of a wait, I'm afraid, but we'll try.
Well, Richard, I mean, we've barely scratched the surface, really, in all the time we've been talking. So you'll have to come back at a slightly more floriferous time of year for some plants that you grow, and we'll do copious quantities of show and tell. But it's been absolutely wonderful to delve into the Roscoeas and the breeding, the salvias, the Eucomis, all of it. Thank you very much for coming along and sharing so much time with us, and actually relocating to a different house so that you could have as much peace as possible for the podcast recording.
It's been lovely. I might just stay here, to be honest.
Until next time, thank you very much, and happy gardening, everybody.
Happy gardening.
Happy gardening.
Try again.
Oh,
I think my computer must have done an update or something.
Process. You have to be unscrupulously clean.
I think you mean scrupulously.
Scrupulously. To be fair, I'm not. Rarely am I this clean. So,
he frozen just for me, or is he frozen for everybody?
Are you frozen? Are you back?
We all froze. We're back. Hail us
Yeah.
again with your love of the flower forms and stuff.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing with the American pitcher plant, Sarracenias, which a lot of people don't see.
Oh.
Gone again.
It really doesn't want us to know, does it? He's back.
Hello.
Did you do anything?
No.
Could you hear
Alan,
us?
I daren't touch anything.
Could you hear us?
No, you all just
Thank
commit.
God for
All
that.
I can see is Thordis, and Thordis freezes.
Oh,
Thank
that's
God
bad.
for that.
So,
No one wants that. You froze in a very elegant position, so
did I? Oh,
You had a
thanks.
swan neck, Richard.
we just don't know if we're ever going to hear about the pitcher plant
No.
without it freezing. Should we try
It's-
a third time and see if it's
No.
third time lucky?